Hello, Martin.
Hi, Deirdre. Welcome back, I guess, to us and to everyone who is watching. Really excited about today's show. And I have a feeling we just have to ask one question and then let Dave get going, and that'll be it. Will take us through the whole show.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. And I've been so looking forward to this show and curious as to. So I love the title. And that was actually Dave who came up with this. The why la 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 la, I can't hear you isn't the best strategy for AI. And I'm wondering if it's because of all the noise and how quickly it's moving or just the sheer fear of what's changing and what's happening in our space. So it'll be interesting to see what the audience says. And I think people are popping in as we speak.
Yes, I think so too. And when you do arrive, please announce yourself. Let us know where you're from. And if you have any questions, just pop them into the chat and we will try to get to them.
Yes. So before we get to Dave, anything you want to share, Martin? What's going on? What's new?
No, I'm just in the middle of grading assignments. But what I did do on the weekend is I created a GPT as an Ask Martin questions about my course. So I uploaded my course outline, my assignments, things like that. And I'm going to have the students test it out. So I'll report back next time we talk, but it was so easy to do. And actually creating it was fast, but uploading and finding all the documents, that took time.
Isn't it amazing that you can just create that on your own? And
Yeah.
it probably takes what, 10, 15, 20 minutes for creation?
Yeah, pretty much to get it there, but then to fine tune it takes time. And we can talk to Dave about that. How about you, Deirdre? What's new with you?
So we're really excited because we are beta testing our new AI web-based application that helps speakers when they show up to speak, it reads your face and all of your facial expressions so that when you're talking, your words are actually matching what your body language or your face is saying. And I'm going to drop a link to the website where if you go on the homepage, scroll all the way down, you can join as a beta tester for free. Check it out and use the speaker recording and playback function because that'll tell you a lot about how you show up. So that's what's new in my world.
That's great. And you demonstrated it for me last week, and it's really great. We should have it on now to see, make
Yeah,
sure
right?
we're expressing what
Reading
we
our
want.
faces. Exactly. 98 ways. Okay. Well, let's get to our expert guest, who is Dave Beers. And Dave is a top AI instructor on LinkedIn. The very first course he launched attracted over 100,000 students. They're still raving about it. Dave has a new course that just came out, and hopefully he'll share a little bit about that. He works with numerous companies, including Fortune 500 companies, on practical AI implementation. Dave is an author, he's a speaker, and he's also a broadcaster on the topics of innovation, creativity, and ideation. Without further ado, let's welcome Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. I don't have much else going on, so
Yeah, I know, because AI, your chatbot is doing everything. We have a lot of people here. One, Kim says, Dave for president. President of what or where? I don't know, but
I,
sure, I vote
I
for
don't
you.
know. I don't think I've had anything more responsible than being a toilet monitor when I was 7. I think that was.
Well, hopefully, that's a good
President of AI.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We have a crowd coming. I see a hello from Istanbul.
Hello,
So,
Yeah,
Istanbul.
yes,
and
incredible.
from Hamilton, Devin Flynn. Nice to see you, Devin. Buffalo, New York. Valerie, Laura from Brussels.
Brussels, rainy Brussels.
Jen, yeah, West Africa. Kemi, nice to see you. So lots of people. Why don't we get started with the first question? And that is, we all know that there is a seismic shift pretty much almost a year ago for professionals with the launch of ChatGPT. And then, of course, last week, there was another seismic shift, with all the GPTs and OpenAI's announcements and all the other subsequent news that's going to follow. How do you stay on top of all of this?
Well, it's almost impossible. I've got to say it is. That even for someone like me who's spending so much time looking at this, things are moving so fast that it's impossible to keep up with it with any real sense of depth. So one of the things I get asked a lot about, what tools can we use in our company? And I'm like, well, I don't have time to test all the tools. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't be testing them as in depth as you would. And I don't understand how you would fit this into your processes either, because I would need to understand your organization. It takes a lot more knowledge, to be able to give a sort of proper recommendation of anything. But there's certain sites that I go to, there's certain YouTubers that I follow, there's certain LinkedIn folk that I follow, and I just try to absorb as much as I can, but I can't get everything.
Well, who are two or three of the ones that are your go-tos?
Well, on YouTube, I try to catch every week. There's a chap called Matt Wolf who does a YouTube video of a rundown of the AI news of the week. And he brings that out every Friday. And he's great. He covers stuff in a really easy to understand way. When it comes to LinkedIn, there's folk like Connor Grennan is absolutely phenomenal. He's Dean of Students at NYU. Jason Gullia is brilliant when it comes to talking about particularly education and how AI fits into the world of education. There's quite a few folk that I follow on LinkedIn, but maybe if you aren't following these folks, then go for it. Give them a follow.
And I want to add in, Martin, your newsletter is extremely helpful when it comes to AI, just breaking it down into simple terms, which I think is really important. Dave, do you feel like because AI is so overwhelming, that's where the la strategy comes from, or it's just fear?
Well,
it's fear
there's lots of different kinds of fear, isn't there? There's fear that you're going to become irrelevant. So let's just stick our fingers in our ears and let's pretend nothing's happening. And a lot of folk, that's their strategy. There's fear of screwing up. So what if I do this and I do it wrong? That's another big fear. There's fear of having to invest time in learning something new. That's another fear. And I think that when we start seeing all of this information and people in their LinkedIn news feeds, their timelines, they're just seeing AI. I think it's understandable that a lot of people who haven't yet stepped in might feel as if they're too far behind to start now. But the truth is that most companies, from what I've seen stats-wise, depends on the industry, but most companies have really not started with AI yet. So you are not behind. So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
There's a stat out of Qualtrics, a survey that's interesting. It says that executives are so much more bullish on AI. 64% of executives see the prospect of AI as exciting, where it's the employee who at 39% has that fear. And that makes sense. 1 out of 5 employees are fearful.
Yeah.
It speaks to the fear that you mentioned.
Yeah. And I mean, I come from the creative side of advertising. So I used to be creative director of ad agencies. And I've been out of the industry for nearly 15 years, but I still teach. And when I'm looking at students at the moment who are really keen right now about using AI to help them with their creative ideas and wanting to know how to do that, so that which is one of the places where my last course that I've just brought out came from, because it's AI for creativity. Oh. And these are the people who also, the ones who are in the industry, who have been writing and designing for decades. They're now worried because it means that they have to rethink their approach. and they're worried about not being relevant anymore, about not understanding this new technology. And I'm seeing that in my old industry, which is why a lot of them then get this sort of, they come across all arrogant and go, yeah, AI is rubbish. It's just not any good. It doesn't have soul, and they come up with this kind of nonsense. And there's nothing new about that. When we look at what happened with photography and the world of art, artists were saying in the 1850s, photography, it doesn't have any soul. It's nothing like what an artist can bring. And it's exactly the same arguments we've got 175 years later. So there's nothing new about this. People who are the old guard are always going to try and deny this new technology is any good. We've seen it again and again, and we're just seeing it again right now. And the truth is, as people have spouted again and again for the last year, that you're unlikely to lose your job to an AI, but you may very well lose your job to somebody using an AI. And it is so, so true. It's the people who are trying to hold off on this and say that it's rubbish, and they're the ones who are damaging their own career prospects, sadly.
Yes. Oh, Dave, there is a question. What was the name again after Connor Grannon, the guy in AI education?
Jason Gulya, Gulya. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
We do have a question from Gregory, and that is he's finding his expectation on the way that scientists are welcoming or hyping AI with open arms is getting in the way of conversations about it, figuring out what it is, what it actually can do right now, what it might be able to do in the future. How are you approaching this?
I'm a skeptic, and I think that it's very healthy to be a skeptic when it comes to this kind of technology. I think what you find is that there's two sides of a bell curve, where you've got the people who are the naysayers on one side, and then you've got the tech douchebags on the other. And you've got any new technology comes along. We saw it with Bitcoin, didn't we? The tech douchebags who you just would not want to hang out with at a party because it's just everything's so brilliant. It's game changing, as a phrase they use a lot. This just changes everything, man. These people, do not trust them. The ones who are saying that this is a load of old tosh, do not trust them. So either end of the bell curve, that's not the place to be. And when we get these people who are the tech douchebag evangelists, who they're not rigorous enough, they're too quick to jump, and they're not bringing in the rigor. And I think that for this, particularly when it comes to business, we do need rigor. We need to make sure that we're not going to damage the business with our decisions. We do need to make sure that we're supporting our staff, bringing everyone along as much as possible. And companies are doing a particularly bad job of all of that right now. So that's the stuff that I would really like to see sorted, which is something that I've been trying to deal with.
So then, Dave, for companies, how can they be more strategic about approaching AI and how they're going to use it within their stack? But also, it's in the communication part too. It's what you're sharing with employees. Because if you don't share about it, then all kinds of stories can get in your employees' heads, ruminate, and then there's that feeling of fear.
Yes, absolutely. There's something that I've been creating that I'm just about to launch, which is, let's see if this comes up here. There we go. The Sensible AI Manifesto. And this is something that I've got 7 points here for companies that I think are really, really important for every company that's getting on board AI. And I've got to say that most companies are not doing these 7 points. And I think that it's really important that they have a look at this. So, for example, the first one here is the attitude that it's really important that you look at AI as a way of augmenting human skills. So the way that a lot of companies are doing it, they immediately go in, what businesses are like, how can we use this to cut costs? And that's not the attitude we need to have with this. That yes, we can outsource tasks to AI, but there's only so much savings you're going to get, and it's incredibly short term. And when you outsource tasks to AI excels at adequacy, So what you're doing is you're trading adequacy for a few savings, and it will damage your business in the long term if that is all that you're focusing on. But if you're looking at taking AI and using it to augment your workforce, to make them capable of things that they were never previously capable of, the opportunities there are massive. So that's the attitude that it's really important for companies to come in with. And I'm finding that about 3/4 of companies that I speak to are really looking at how they can use this for productivity boosting, in the sense of how can we use it to save money? How can we do more in less time? And I think that that's just, it's a loser's game in the long term.
Yeah, and
So,
yeah,
yeah,
no, it's really true when you say that about productivity. All the research that the big consulting firms are sharing talk about the increases in productivity, but none of them are asking about relationships. What are your relationships with your customers, with your staff?
yes,
And that's what you're saying. I agree. That's got to be the heart of it. How can we make us better with AI, as opposed to saying, okay, let's just settle for more good enough? Because we all know, when we're time constrained, it's too easy for marketers, communicators, advertisers, any
yeah,
creatives to say, okay, that's good enough. And you're right, AI
yes.
does that well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes you to that kind of all right level. But the problem is that we can sniff this stuff out. And people, I think they've got an innate feeling that if this wasn't good enough to get a human to write or to get a human to do, then surely it's not good enough for a human to read or interact with. And we will get that feeling. And these companies will damage themselves. I think the other thing, we've got to look at data, and we've got to use data responsibly. And that's something that there's a lot of companies that haven't gone into this that wisely, and they haven't told their staff what information you can and can't put into a publicly accessible AI. And that's one of the most important things that you need to decide and to communicate to your workforce when you start using AI. I think being ethical is really important because we don't have legal precedents yet. And if you are not guided sensibly by your head and your heart, then you may become a legal precedent. And that's something no company wants. I think it's really important that we look at supporting our employees. So in training them and giving them guardrails, giving them the support, also the emotional support. If these people are worried about how AI will affect them, we need to be there for them as well, to support them and encourage them and let them know that this is not about replacing them, because hopefully it's not about replacing them. It's about augmenting them and giving them bigger opportunities. I think you need to have a butt to kick. So you have to assign leaders. It's also a back to pat when somebody does well, but accountability is really, really important. This is changing all the time. So you either need to assign someone internally or externally to be the people who keep up with the latest news, to tell you what the developments are. Because there's some of my clients that I've been working with, I know that if we had done the usual thing, where, okay, I'm going to build an AI tool, then you have to define that tool so that you can get the budget released for it. And then you have to stick to what you're delivering because the budget is everything signed off there contractually within the budget. That if you approach it that way, everything you do will be out of date by a significant amount. So it's really important that we've got to be flexible and to keep learning. And then with our contracts for AI stuff, to have flexibility in it so that when new developments come along, we can make the most of them while we're in development stage before it comes to launch. And then I think it's important that everyone understands that you cannot just accept the output of an AI and go, that's it, that's good enough. You have to add a human layer to validate and verify what you've got to make sure everything's correct, but also then to add that quality human fairy dust over the top so that we can make sure that everything is good enough, it's properly on brand, it's got the tone of voice, it's saying what we want it to say, all of these things that the touchy-feely stuff, that needs to be added to the output. But So that's one of the things that I've been working on. I'm just about to launch, because I think it's really, really important that companies understand how to use AI. Even if they already started with it, they still need to go back to this list and check it out and sort of make sure that they are doing this the right way.
Yeah, that's a great
Great.
list. Somebody's asking when this will be available. Do you have a time frame you can give?
Before Festivus. I'm
Okay.
It's always good. We have a question from Jan Weaver, and that is, hold on, oops. What do you say to all those who are concerned with the proliferation of AI-generated content online? Will we get to a point where bots are just learning from bots so that we end up with content that's so far removed from the original human voice as to not have any humanity at all?
In the short term, no. In the long term, possibly. And I would say that might be 4 or 5 years down the line, but I think that the AI companies will do something to deal with that. What they have to be careful of is that there was an AI company a few months ago where they had got people using Mechanical Turk. You know, the thing where you pay people very, very little to get them to do a task. So they were getting them to answer questions so that this could then go into the training data for a large language model. And they discovered that the majority of people in Mechanical Turk had used AI to generate the answers. So it meant that AI content is going in to the AI. It becomes a snake eating its tail, doesn't it? Where if you've got the same input going, the output from AI going into AI, the health of the information is going to go down. So yes, there is a concern there, but it's not a concern in the immediate term. And I think when it comes to the worry about the proliferation of content, where we're then looking at content online and the internet being full of AI-generated content, well, Google is all about bringing the best, most valuable, most relevant content to the surface. And it says that it's not bothered whether that is AI or human, as long as it's as valuable as can be. That's the stuff that it wants to rise to the top. So really what it's all about is just the good old classic thing of understand your audience and give them the best value.
Yeah. We've got another question from our viewers, and this is from Catherine in Canada. What are the copyright concerns with AI? Because we've heard a lot about that, and how will that impact the creative process?
Copyright's an interesting one. We are going to see some court cases in the near future unless they're settled out of court. Where there's certainly Getty Images was suing Stable Diffusion because a lot of the Stable Diffusion stuff came up with a Getty Images watermark on it. So they couldn't deny that stuff had actually been put into the training data. So that'd be interesting to see where that goes. There's some class action suits from artists, from authors. Personally, as an author, I'm delighted that my work is in there. I've got no problem with that at all, because I would want the stuff, I guess, because I'm nonfiction. I want the stuff that I've spent so many years working on, these theories and all this research and knowledge. I want it to be shared as widely as possible. And plus, I don't make any money out of my books, really. So it's no skin off my nose. But copyright's interesting. Last week at ChatGPT, OpenAI's Dev Day, they announced that if there are any legal claims on any work that's been created by ChatGPT, that they will help you out with legal costs. So they're covering that. It's something that Adobe were trying to have as their point of difference for their image model. And Adobe Firefly, they said that all of the images here, if you've got any copyright issues with any of this, we will cover the costs. So they did this 6 months ago. The problem is that Firefly was not a patch on any of the other image generators. It's better now, but it wasn't a patch on it. So it's I think is a really interesting area. But when it comes to copyright, a lot at the beginning in the legal agreements that you had when you signed up to OpenAI or whatever other AI you were signing up to, it said that you owned the content. You owned anything that came out. But of course, the US court decided that that actually wasn't true, and that anything that's been generated by an algorithm or an AI cannot be owned by anyone. Now, the interesting thing comes, when I was a musician, I would sometimes write music as a composer, and I remember being asked to do a pastiche of Kylie's Can't Get You Out of My Mind for a Barbie commercial about 20 years ago. And I did, but I had to speak to a lawyer about it. And legally, every seventh note had to be different. And the other part of the law was passing off, which is if it sounded, even at that, if it sounded too similar to be so that it could be mistaken for the real thing, at that point, you could still be sued. So the question comes, when you've got AI generated content, if you use that as it is without editing it, then yes, you don't own it. But if you start to edit it, how much work do you have to do to that before you own it? And that is the area that I do not know. And that's what the lawyers need to fight about, because they're going to have to put some kind of number on that. Does it need to be 17% different, 24% different, 38%? I don't know. So, and then how can they prove that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot there that's very, very gray area. And the lawyers are desperate to get their teeth into this because, money, baby. It's a lot of stuff to define here.
There is. I would say two things. One, you're going to need to re-release your Barbie song now with an AI version to say, to tie into the streaming.
Good timing.
But two, don't trust an AI lawyer. You've got to talk to legal counsel and get them to explain it to you, because right now it is gray area. Attribution, maybe. Giving credit, maybe that'll work. But, so much is up in the air right now.
Yeah. And the thing is, even with attribution, I think that I had in my first course, which was released just over 6 months ago, I recommended that you tell people that you've got clarity. If you've created something with AI, to be clear, particularly to your clients, that you're using AI, and maybe even say, if with your output that there was AI help here. But I think that what's going to happen, I don't feel as strongly about that anymore. I think what's going to happen is there's just going to be a general assumption AI was involved in this in some way. And so you won't need to say anything. I don't think really in the next 6 months.
That's good. Deirdre, do you want to, I think we're coming to the close to the end.
I can't even believe it. Before we ask a final question, Dave, I was just curious, what AI tool did you use for the social card that we shared out there about this episode? So you had a great AI avatar. Do you remember what you used?
I don't. I can tell you that it was one of the cheap ones that you get on a mobile. And
okay.
I did it last Christmas, and I just generated, you put in like 7 pictures of your face, and then it would come back with 100 different images of you. And I just picked one of those images. And so I can't remember, but it was one of the ones that, I think it costs like $5 to get,
great,
to get 100 AI images.
Yeah, there's so many of these tools. Well, let's toss out the final question. Do you have any parting advice about generative AI for digital marketers who are here today, just so they can walk away with a sense of, I've got this, I can be strategic?
Well, I mean, the best thing to do is to learn. I've had a couple of, I would guess you could call them arguments, discussions on LinkedIn over the last few days with people when it comes to them sort of saying you don't need to learn prompt engineering, you don't need to do any education, you just get in there and get your hands dirty. And yeah, I agree that people should get in and get their hands dirty. But what I'm finding with my students, and Martin, I'm sure you're the same, is that people don't really know where to start. And the education is about giving them a a faster on-ramp onto the highway, because otherwise people will meddle around or they'll be too scared to get started. So I would say get every resource you can. There's so many good courses on LinkedIn Learning for AI. There's Martin's course. I've got 6 courses now, I think, on AI. And there's a whole bunch of other ones, Tomer's course. So I would say that's what I would recommend. But also, I've got here, I give you a free prompt every Tuesday. So sign up and get free prompt every Tuesday. And get all the help you can possibly get, because this is all moving so fast. I think you should be accelerating your learning and accelerating your journey into AI as much as you possibly can. So don't hold off on whatever help you can get.
Yes. And I would also say go into it when you're getting that help to know what your goals are. How do you think you want to use AI? What are you going to do with it? And then that narrows the field, especially in your learning. So it's not so overwhelming. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Dave. And know that you have to talk to a machine differently than you talk to a person, because they don't yet understand all the shortcuts. And that's why prompt engineering, and Dave, your course on how to research and write with generative AI is a great one for people to take. And if people haven't done that fantastic course, because you really give people a framework on how to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a prompt is the same as a brief. So having worked in creative departments for ad agencies, you know that the quality of output you would get from creatives was pretty much proportional to the quality of the brief that they were given. And it's exactly the same with a prompt, that when you're giving a prompt to an AI, it's your brief to the AI. You can't give it less information than you would give a human to do the same job. And you can't have a whole load of assumptions, as you're saying, Martin. You have to give it all of that information, the contextual information, as well as the information about your problem. And if you don't give it all of that information in this prompt brief, then you're not going to get great results. But when you give an AI a prompt as good as you would give a human, you will be absolutely amazed at the quality that you can get out of the AI.
Yeah, and that's a great point to end. There's a link to your course on prompt engineering, where really you talk about prompt engineering. And we just want to thank you, Dave, for taking time. We'll love to continue this at some point. And thanks to everybody who joined us and who added comments. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. And Deirdre, Dave, great seeing you, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thanks, folks.
Martin. Bye.